This is the largest collection of Stanley memorabilia to ever be together at one place on the West Coast. Once they float to the top, that's unfortunately when we get to the icky part where you actually need to skim the bugs off the surface. I'm going to give you a little look at, that's just a few bugs we picked up just right now. We went to the hacker's Twitter account and found all of this information. It includes names, addresses, phone numbers, emails, even marital status. Just to give you an idea of how much information is out there, there was more than 500 pages worth of documents. Firefighters had to ground aircrafts for nearly 2 hours sometimes while they dealt with drones. And they say that's precious time that they can't afford to lose. You can already see that there's been a part of the ground that's come away, kind of forming an island per se. This is where the fire broke out today, but just a few weeks ago and a few hundred feet away, fire broke out at that abandoned building. Check out the size of this thing. So when you're trying to remove a boulder, the first way is obviously by breaking it apart, but after their investigation, they're gonna find out whether or not this rock can actually even be broken apart. There is a massive media presence here, and as we heard in the press conference, also a massive police response. They said virtually all police departments in the area did respond and are here working to find these two suspects. We arrived once police had already boarded up that home, but the people we spoke with who went inside said it was absolute pandemonium and chaos. They said there was pushing, some people even taking things from that home. We spoke with one man who captured the entire thing on his camera. And as you can see, this brush is really dry and brittle, which is no surprise why this fire started, but I do want to take you outside so you can kind of see just how much of a cleanup effort is going on right now. All of these limbs and tree branches were cut down. They are keeping Country Club closed in both directions, so if you do live near this area or work near this area, you're going to have a hard time getting to where you need to go. One of the latest things is you can clearly see right now is that we are dealing with some very strong winds. Not sure how that's going to affect these firefighting efforts, but as you can see in this area, we've moved back to where we were earlier on. Looks like most of the flames were put out, but if you take a look all the way up to that ridge, look at all of the brush that's been charred. Lots of homeowners very concerned about their homes. As you can see, this home right here, proximity to the flames, very close. We spoke to one of the homeowners earlier who wondered whether he'd be coming back to a home. Well, sadly, it's time to get back to the present, but on October 22nd, you can come to Alto Circle and step back in time for yourself. Bye! We're in the Deer Lodge Park area, which is where the mandatory evacuation is underway. Also, there's voluntary evacuations in Hesperia and Lake Arrowhead areas, but I want to show you something really quick. This yellow tape over here, this is super important right now for firefighters. It's letting them know some information about a lot of these homes that are in the mandatory evacuation areas, letting them know whether or not there's people still inside these homes. But that's pretty basic. But now they're adding a little bit more information, showing these signs that are popping up on a lot of the sides of these homes just within the last couple of hours. You can see there's a yellow sign just right there with a lot of important information on it. You can see at the top there's an A circled. That means that a Type 1 engine has access to this home. You can see the W right there. It's got a cross through it. It says this home has no water source, but a really important thing on this sheet of paper is the person that's circled. That means that there are still people inside this home. You can see the notes just below. It says 1 adult and 1 cat. That means that there are still people inside this home, which really seems to be kind of the norm in this area. Not a lot of people who are ready to leave. Frank Van Diest has lived in Deer Lodge Park his whole life. He's lived through other wildfires and says he doesn't plan to leave if he doesn't have to.
I would rather not evacuate all my animals, so I'm trying to stick it out, and what is our next step.
Other neighbors coming back to check on their homes Tuesday.
I came back because I was fearful of looters going through my house and everything because my front door wouldn't have locked, but I fixed it this morning.
While the fire seems far away, fire officials know things could change quickly. The main difference from Monday, the terrain where the fire is burning.
More trees, more foliage, which is also more fuel. And not only that, the trees, once you get the fire into the trees, they can start torching. It goes from one tree to the next.
The number of firefighters working to contain the pilot fire has doubled since Monday, with more on the way. Poole says even though it might seem far away, he says everyone under mandatory evacuations should leave.
You always have folks that decide not to heat it, and we highly recommend that they do, not only for their safety, but for the safety of our firefighters.
Van Dies says the last time the fire came right up to the end of his street, and he stayed then. This time, he doesn't think it will be that bad.
They put so much equipment on it today that I think they're getting a better handle on it.
Now, firefighters really do not want this fire to come down from that ridge you can see in the past. It looks pretty okay at this point in time, but they say if it does come down in this valley, there's a lot of trees down there that can really spread this fire quickly and make it very disastrous for a lot of homes up in this area. So this is under a mandatory evacuation again. So they say if you are still here, you really need to evacuate because it can become hazardous for a lot of the firefighters when it does come time for them to protect your house. You could possibly get in the way. Now make sure to check out our website, cbslocal2.com, for all the latest on evacuations, road closures, and all of the very latest details about the pilot fire. Reporting live in Deer Lodge Park, Alexandra Pierce, CBS Local 2 News. When we learned David Turpin created his own private school, Sandcastle Day School, we wanted to know how he could do that. We started by reaching out to the Riverside County Office of Education.
Offices like the Riverside County Office of Education, we focus purely on public schools and charter schools, and those are really don't seem to be part of the private school discussion that's happening here.
The county has little to do with private school regulation. Instead, that falls to the state. We went to the California Department of Education website and learned in order to start a private school, you need to fill out this form. It's called a private school affidavit, or R4 form.
Basically registering whoever's filling it out and submitting it as someone who's going to operate a private school report, and have to fill it out under penalty of perjury, that they are going to follow certain things in the education code.
The form asks basic questions like name, address, and contact information for the school. It also asks for what grades the students are in and how many people work at the school.
Choosing private school as an option means that there's not the same kind of oversight as there is in a public school.
When we looked into how these schools are regulated, we were shocked to learn the state rarely checks on private schools. The California Department of Education website says they don't regulate private schools. In California, no state agency licenses, regulates, or oversees private schools. Private school teachers do not need to possess a valid California teaching credential. Private schools also do not need to follow a curriculum required by the state. However, private school employees do need to submit fingerprints and complete a background check. And if someone wanted to report issues about the Sandcastle Day School, the Department of Education says in general, complaints about a private school's policies or practices would be addressed to and handled by that school's administration, governing board, owner, or affiliated church. Initially too sick to leave the hospital, Andre Pearson knew he wasn't going to be able to make it to his daughter's wedding.
I felt that I could do more. I felt that we could do more. And not to be able to walk her down the aisle, not to be able to even stand up and say, I am the one that will give her away. That I felt I let her down.
But after being reevaluated, his team at the Mayo Clinic decided he was well enough to make the trip to the Desert Ridge Estate in Indio, where his daughter was getting married.
They told me that they had a meeting earlier that morning and said that they came up with something to so I can see my daughter's wedding. And they told me that they were going to fly me out here to California to see the wedding.
And give his daughter the surprise of a lifetime.
I knew there's no way he was coming, like at all. I knew the circumstances and everything. And I just felt like shocked. It was like a dream, kind of.
I didn't expect this to happen, didn't expect to be here, but it's a good feeling.
The next day, Andre was able to take the walk every father and daughter dream of.
To be able to march down the aisle with my daughter is going to be overwhelming. Expect to see some tears of joy. I got another son now in Jonathan, and I wouldn't have another guy be with Alexandra but him. And that's going to be an overwhelming point to see him and her, at the altar.
A dream fulfilled for her.
It was amazing. Since he wasn't supposed to be here, it was just amazing to have him, sickness and all, he was here and just made me feel happy and like really whole and complete.
And a moment he'll never forget.
I feel good. I feel like a father that is doing what he's supposed to do.